Okay, I got you over here to the table where I'm building the mold for the carbon fiber and going to be doing the carbon fiber layup on the mold when I get to it. Welcome to part 10 of this series of building a carbon fiber intake for an 8.3 Cummins. I've got you over here because last chapter I told you that I was going to order the material, and there is the receipt for the material that I ordered from them. We're going to get into that. I will show you a little bit of an unboxing, but one of the things that I want to address first is in chapter 9 or part 9 of this series, Brian Block left a comment about the clearances on that intake and the P-pump. And I'm going to take you over to the engine and show you that. And then after that, I'm going to take you to something that I've got laying around the shop that was a huge mistake on my part. And I keep it around just to kind of keep me in check. Keep reminding me that you've got to think, you've got to plan, and you've got to lay things out to make sure that they're going to work. But let me take you over to the engine and I will show you how it's going to fit up kind of on the engine. I'm just going to bring you over to the engine. This is the 8.3 and it's sitting in the haul truck. And what I've done is one of the things that Brian Block questioned is to make sure that that intake manifold would miss the lines coming out of the P-pump or the injection pump. So what I've done is that head is about 5 inches thick. I've got a couple of pieces of dunnage, and the top piece is set back from the front of the engine to where that intake manifold will start. And as you can see, the intake manifold clears the injection pump. So I'm good in that aspect. I'll bring you back and we'll discuss that a little bit in the next clip. So I have this thing sitting around the shop, and this is kind of in conjunction with the clip that I just shot of the that air intake sitting on top of the 8.3. Sometimes I'm a little embarrassed to show this. I keep it around just to kind of remind myself of where not thinking gets you. Brian Block had mentioned in a comment of part 9 of that intake build, make sure that that thing clears the injection pump lines. And this is exactly why I was positive that it cleared the injection pump lines. I had made this thing for a 5.9 Cummins. It's a intake manifold, and what I was going to do is make the runner for the 5.9 for the intake out of one piece and put 2 ports into it. And I did this before I think Banks came out with, or before I ever saw Banks thing. So this is kind of my own idea. It's along the same lines as Banks' Boss intake. And it's staggered in height because he wanted to leave the grid heater on the one intake port. So the grid heater would be sitting under the one intake, and that one would be attached directly to a flange that went over the top of the air plenum on a 5.9 head. But the entire problem with this thing is I didn't take into consideration the P-pump on the engine, and it was right into it. So I kind of, it was kind of a mock-up to begin with. Well, it was kind of a mock-up in the fact is if it had worked, it probably would have been used. But it basically was a mock-up, and it never got used, as you can see, because it wouldn't have worked. It was into the P-pump. But you live and learn by your mistakes. More so than learning from other people, you learn by your mistakes. I'm going to bring you back over here to the table where I'm building that carbon fiber intake thing. Yeah, intake mold. I'm building the mold and going to be laying up the carbon fiber to make the intake for the Cummins A3. A couple of videos ago, it could have been 6, 7, maybe it was 8. A part to this, Brian Block had mentioned when I was talking about getting better airflow into there to reduce exhaust gas temperatures on 1 and 2 and on 6, sorry, 1 and 2 and 6. He had mentioned, you know, if I was concerned about it, why didn't I just do a little bit of water injection into it? He has a valid point. You can reduce the exhaust gas temperatures by injecting water into it. But the problem is I really don't want to do it. It's a working truck. What I'm concerned about is over the road type of use, and where I get into situations where I'm hauling heavy loads or pulling large hills or mountains. Keeping those exhaust gas temperatures good. I really don't want to put any type of water methane injection or water injection into a working truck. Now, let me make another point as long as we are along them lines. I had told you about the cylinders on a 5.9. The airflow into the 5 and 6 cylinders on a 5.9 is very restricted, whereas these airflow into the cylinders on the 8.3 are 1 and 2 that is restricted. There could be a difference, and I don't know whether any testing is done about this, on the 5.9, because it is 5 and 6 cylinders, and they are the cylinders that are farthest back on the engine. They are also, 6 is kind of, in a ram, is kind of concealed underneath the firewall. So there is no good airflow to the back of the engine. First of all, the water, your cooling lines are all fed into the front of the engine. So 5 and 6 are the farthest back in the engine as far as getting cooling water to them. But the other thing is that they are sitting back and concealed kind of under the firewall, where you're not really getting good airflow past that head also. So maybe on the 8.3, where the 2 cylinders that are restricted with airflow are 1 and 2, those are, let me stop and bring you back. Sorry, got to interrupt with a phone call. So anyways, the cylinders that are restricted on the 8.3 are 1 and 2, where the cooling water again comes into the front of the engine, so you're getting the freshest or coolest water into the front of the engine, but you're also getting, those cylinders are getting much more airflow across them versus the 5 and 6 cylinders in the back. Now, 5 and 6 are somewhat restricted, but is not as bad as 1 and 2 on the 8.3. But again, if I get the chance, what I'm going to do is put pyros on it. I'll use this manifold, intake manifold, to begin with, and check the exhaust gas temperatures on it. And then I'll switch it over to this manifold, which I think has a better linear flow of air into those sides, and check the exhaust gas temperatures on that and see if it makes any difference. Might not make many difference at all. The 8.3 might not have an issue at all because, again, the two cylinders that are restricted as far as airflow going into those ports are 1 and 2, and 1 and 2 are up front where you're getting better airflow across the engine block and head, and where the water is coming out of the radiator and it is coolest at that point. So it might not be an issue at all, but we'll find out, hopefully. Okay, I'm over here, and as I told you in the last chapter of this carbon fiber build, that I was going to be getting the material for the material, the carbon fiber, and the material resin to do it. So I've got it in these boxes. It came in the day that I got back. It came in. So let me, I'm going to set you up on a tripod. We'll do a little unboxing, and I'll kind of explain to you what I've got and why I got it. Okay, what we're going to do is open the small box. It's got the material in it. It's going to have the resin and other materials, and I will kind of explain them as I go along. We'll save that the box with the fiber in it for last, because that's going to be a little more in depth about why I got the type of fiber that I got. No. I hate this stuff. Let me pull it out and I'll explain it to you after I get it out of these stupid pellets. Okay, what we've got here is it looks like 5 items. The first item is a pair of shears to cut the material. Now, you might think this is kind of overboard on this, but apparently carbon fiber, and I've got a carbon fiber Kevlar mix, they are hard on regular scissors. You can dull regular scissors just cutting carbon fiber. For cutting a bit of carbon fiber, they'll dull out real quick. The other problem with regular scissors, these scissors have a serrated edge on them. And what that does is allow you to cut, because what will happen is the cloth will get drawn in on regular scissors without serrated edges on them. And it's really hard, it'll bunch up, and it's hard to cut, and it starts unraveling then that way too. It pulls fibers out. Pulls the fibers out of the sheet. So I got a pair of scissors. This is mold release wax. This is a film that you can put onto the mold for release. So you have 2 forms of release, and ironically you put the wax on first and then spray this on to it afterwards. And this is the epoxy resin. Now, somebody in one of the videos asked a question or left a comment and saying, isn't the epoxy or isn't the resin going to interfere with the foam on the mold? And it will. Well, it will. There is a couple of types of resin. There's polyester resin, which will affect that foam. and I forgot the name of the other resin, will affect it also. So I got epoxy, and you can actually put this epoxy directly on top of the foam and it won't harm it. Now I'm not going to put it directly onto the foam because the wax and that mold release is going to go on first. So there's those products. Let me shut you off and I'll bring you back and we'll discuss the fiber. Okay, when you buy fiber, and it can vary from place to place, but kind of the most that I found, they sell it by the yard, but the width of it to begin with is usually 50 inches. Now it can vary, and you can buy cutoffs so that you might have a different width, but usually it's 50 inches and it's sold by the yard. What I'm going to do is just try and peel it down so that you can see it, but so that it stays intact. Okay, what this is the carbon fiber. Now it's just a regular carbon fiber and it's got a twill weave on it. Again, comes in 50-foot lengths and I got 2 yards of it. And I think the weight on it is 6 ounce, but I'm not sure. I'll double check that for you and let you know. Okay, this material here is carbon fiber and Kevlar. It's a composite mix. So this cloth has both carbon fiber and Kevlar in it. And I'm going to have this as the inner layer and the outer layer of it with just pure carbon fiber, the twill weave wrapped in between it. Now, why I did this is because of the strength of the Kevlar. It expands where possibly I could get expansion out of boost, turbo boost onto this thing. It will expand but still stay strong. It can, carbon fiber and Kevlar kind of both have the same characteristics. It will expand and contract and expand and contract and not weaken, except if you exceed its limits. And then it will fail catastrophically. But you can expand and contract this stuff a number of times as long as you're not within its limits. I'm going to put this back because I just want to keep it in the box. Both of these things are susceptible to UV. So the carbon fiber, the twill weave carbon fiber is 5.7 ounce, and the Kevlar, the carbon Kevlar fiber is 5.5 ounce. I'll bring you back.
So I didn't get a lot to do on it this week because of me getting tied up with that haul, but this is kind of what I'm looking to do. I tried those O-rings. The O-rings weren't big enough, so I've got some 10 gauge wire here, insulated wire, and I'm going to wrap it around like that. Going to make another one over there, That way the band clamp can go in there. It'll form up the carbon fiber enough to create a raised dimple in it, and can put a clamp between the two spots so that it holds it in place. The silicone boot that's going to go over it, clamp it, and it'll hold it in place because of the two ridges that are created by that.
Okay, so I'm back over here again. This is after I had showed you all of that, the materials that I got for it. What I've been doing is working on it a little more, just trying to get a couple of the imperfections out of it. And what I've done is come across, and I had this laying around. It's a fast drying enamel paint, and I sprayed it on it. I have put paint on it before, and some paints react with the foam. So I sprayed this on there. What I want to do is get it down. There's these small little imperfections, little like pinholes, little dimples, stuff like that. I'm going to take care of them. There's a very good possibility I might just do it with this spot glaze. This spot glaze is actually like a primer, a very thick primer, and you can put it on. You can't put it on heavy. You put it on little areas where you have some imperfections in it. But what I'm doing is that going to finish it out. Again, it's been roughed out with 80 grit paper, 60 grit paper. So I sprayed this on there. What I'm going to do is start using finer grit paper to do it. Get those little imperfections out. Start working on the boards that it's going to be placed on, so that I get the base and get the flange made out, and the form for the flange made up, I should say, so I can get it going. And then what I've got to do is I'm going to probably use paper templates to figure out how I am going to cut the material, the fiber, the Kevlar carbon fiber material, so that I can cut it in a pattern that will both help cut it in a pattern that will provide the best coverage and the best way to lay it up on. But anyways, that's probably going to do it for this one. The next time I bring you back, I'll be working on getting those forms made, and for the base where it's going to sit, form for the flange of where it's going to set. Probably doing a little bit of the imperfection works, and then cutting out the paper templates as to how I'm going to cut the carbon fiber. But anyways, thanks for watching, guys. Hit that like button, subscribe, leave a comment.